You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for August 13th. And on this live Tropical Weather Bulletin we have Tropical Storm Meari, which is parked along the coast of southern and central Japan, and still the remnants of Howard, which are still traceable over there in the eastern Pacific. 45 storms so far this year, and I noticed that 3A hasn't been marked there. It has on the close-up. Day 74 of hurricane season in the Atlantic. We've got one area of interest that has emerged over the Gulf of Mexico. We'll take a proper look at that in a little while. 10% chance for that right now as it gradually moves westwards. In the Eastern Pacific, we have two areas of interest still, but they've gone way down in their chances. Still a 20% chance though for the Central Pacific, and a fierce debate ongoing on that one right now. Also the remnants of Howard still out there. Western Pacific, we have Tropical Storm Meari, which is set to make landfall in Japan very soon. Will deliver significant rainfall and the potential for landslides, so could potentially cause some issues during its short time venturing through the islands. And there is Tropical Storm 3A, a surprising tropical cyclone that's managed to develop in the Arabian Sea, but it is very much a tropical cyclone out over the Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea. Now we're going to get an abrupt cut off here because I've not done anything special tonight. So let's cut over to here, which will show us the latest Atlantic satellite imagery and introduce my team for this discussion. It's going to be a less... certainly less slick than a typical tropical weather bulletin, but we felt that it was necessary to go live this evening because there are many different areas of interest that we want to talk about potentially at length. My name is Nathan Foy in the studio. I'm joined tonight by Ethan, Christian, David and Lucas. Hello to all of you. We've got eyes right now on the Atlantic Ocean, but we'll get a look at Miri as soon as we can. I've just not had time to get all the imagery ready. I know I did an update on it not so long ago, and we've got information ticking along the bottom. But whilst we're here, why don't well, actually, let's go over to Ethan, who's got more imagery of this system, and your thoughts, Ethan.
elongated area of low pressure with some pressures falling in this area. That
Sorry
remains to
to
be seen
interrupt,
if this
guys, but I
system
don't think
survives.
Ethan can be heard on the stream.
I knew there'd be a problem somewhere along the lines. I had just fixed it as soon as you said that, Christian. What happened is we had some problems during the early part of today when we had power outages and internet outages, and it decided that everything's basically rebooted from scratch, and none of the audio and audio stuff has been plugged in. So basically, Ethan, we saw what you were showing us, but we never got to hear any of it. You were talking about 98L having its chance to wrap together. You were saying that they happen sometimes, particularly at this time of year. Actually, they tend to happen coming into the Gulf, usually a bit more further east, actually. But we've got this one.
Maybe a little bit, but
well,
yeah.
I'm thinking of things like Barry and stuff like that.
Yep, yeah, that is a notable system. But what I'm noticing on the satellite imagery right now is we have a really broad area of low pressure, but it remains to be seen if this tries to congeal at one spot. But one very notable thing that I did say about this system is it's going to bring some much needed rainfall to portions of southern Texas. This area, I think I can actually pull it up here, actually. I don't know where it is on here, but it's the drought follow thing. I don't know if
I actually got to see the drought monitor earlier today whilst doing some research, and it is a pretty big deal over in Texas right now.
Yeah, it is. I think that I think a large part of Central Texas has the highest that you can get on the drought monitor. It is. There we go. It's right here. I don't know if it'll load it. There we go. So this dark red area is as high into the drought as you can get. Look at how much of Central Texas is in that. San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, all within that. But if we turn off the satellite imagery here and we look into southern Texas, yes, the drought isn't as big as up here in Central Texas, but there still is a little bit of a drought down here, and this system is going to help relieve that drought conditions down there a little bit. But as we always say, every little bit helps in this kind of situation, and let's hope that this rainfall helps that drought out down there.
Finally getting more of my own tools online here. Let's cross over to the Western Pacific, and you can see this wide shot first of all of what's going on with Miri. You can quite clearly see its status there. It's a pretty small system, convection blowing up down the southern side of it though, and honestly looking quite decent. I've still got to do some more configurations to try and get some of the other stuff running, such as how things are right now. Here's another view. Ooh, up there you can see its imagery, the infrared blowing up, and this is really the main feature that we want to be talking about today, because it is obviously the strongest system out there and is approaching landfall fairly soon during the course of today local time over there in Japan. So quite a few different things that we are looking at the same time, and we'll come back to this with more information shortly. Ethan, Eastern Pacific, your favorite area? Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Well, first things first, you can see the remnants of what was Hurricane Howard here. Very, very nice as far as remnant low goes. I mean, I've can't say that I've seen more notable remnant lows, but this is certainly interesting to still be seeing Howard still. But here you can see is Invest Area 90E. National Hurricane Center is still forecasting this to potentially become a very short-lived tropical depression, or maybe even a weak tropical storm, though time is running out for this system. And if we turn over here, you can see what was Invest Area 90C here. ASCAP passed just a few hours ago. We just received the data just before this TWB actually began. Did indicate that there is a closed low-level center of circulation, but the winds are not as strong enough on the west and southern sides. This is not a tropical cyclone, but certainly very interesting to see that this is.
it's up for debate. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
certainly
my
is.
it's my view that the winds aren't anywhere near strong enough on the southern side. Some people take the view that if there's any winds blowing in a circular motion, then it counts. Other people are more stringent. Of course, we know one of the most notable examples of criteria being required is the Bureau of Meteorology. They insist on gales wrapping around halfway. So that implies that the other half could be zero, and that half could be 34 knots. So it's a grey area,
Yeah.
but to some people, this is tantalizingly close to becoming Hone.
Yeah, but what is really making people angry about this system is, and this is ludicrous. The Central Pacific Hurricane Center, just before this ASCAP pass came in, completely dropped the system off their formation chances and dropped it as an invest. So this isn't even being monitored by the Central Pacific Hurricane Center or the ATCF, and this still has, albeit a very low chance of becoming a tropical cyclone, it still does have at least a 10% chance. That's what I gave it on our tropical weather outlook tonight. But I think that this is absolutely ludicrous that the CPHC dropped it this early.
Well, what can you say? Anyone else want to chime in with that right now? Oh, they're all quiet.
I'm trying to get radar for what's that storm called? I keep forgetting its name. Miri. Yes, thank you. I'm trying to get radar. Oh, you've got it. Okay.
Let's have a look. See if we can look. Here we go. So you can see quite clearly the circulation of Miri and some pretty decent showers on the southern side. Go ahead. We're with you, David.
Actually,
Oh, hello.
you cut out. There we go.
What happened there?
Okay.
Why don't you zoom in on the area that was being affected by the rain there near Shizuoka? So there you can see a significant amount of rain falling by the looks of things. That was a little bit earlier, an hour and a half ago. And now you're just seeing some trailing areas there. It was interesting to note that the GFS model really downtrended on their latest run, going with just 4 inches of rainfall from this. I'm not sure I believe it when I look at that.
Yeah, no, this is definitely gonna drop more than that, 100%. While some areas aren't gonna get, say, 20+ inches, this is still gonna be a pretty significant system, because Japan is still a very mountainous area and a very mountainous nation, and that's going to lead to a lot of landslide issues. And you also got to consider that this is also going to basically go right through Tokyo. So you're going to have maybe some downed trees, which would lead to some power outages as well, because it still has some 40, 45 mile per hour wind gusts. And while that might not seem like much, that can still down some tree branches. And if those fall on power lines, all of a sudden you have no power. And those could lead to some serious issues. I mean, your refrigerator is immediately comes to mind that you need to monitor closely. But that's just one analog that could potentially happen from a power outage, of course.
Here's the last JTWC forecast for the storm, which takes it, pretty much through Tokyo there, with winds of 45 miles per hour on their forecast. Having said that, they've been going a little bit lower than the JMA. They've gone with 40 miles per hour presently. JMA roughly around 50 miles per hour, and after that it will move through northeastwards pretty quickly. Concerns where the rain is falling, particularly in Shizuoka province, where we could see the particular concern there about landslides, and they've marked that one in red, as you can see on David's imagery. That's just showing all of the warning zones in Japan there. That's showing all types of warnings. Now, some of the red coastal areas will be due to high waves, but most of that chunk of red on the left hand side is for not just high waves, but also for rain inundation and landslides. I'm not sure what the purple one is for. That's an emergency warning.
That
But
is
if
for a
you,
storm surge warning.
that's for storm surge. So that looks like it's close to Shizuoka there for storm surge. So that's quite interesting.
I was trying to pull up what satellite images on it, but
I've got some
what is
imagery up
that?
right now on Miri.
Oh, good. We needed some of that. Let's go to this imagery. Some infrared there showing. Is that current?
It's yeah, this is current. It's very interesting to see because I can plop back over, right? Plop over to the GMA radar here, but you've got this large area, or semi-large, I guess you could say, area of thunderstorms to the north of the center of circulation. And going back to the imagery, this appears to be due to this thunderstorm complex up here that is affecting Japan and appears to be moving off towards the northeast. Will be very interesting to see how long this sustains and if this tries or does something to the northern side of the circulation, and maybe we see some little bit intensification prior to landfall here in a few hours.
I think so.
I know that the Joint Typhoon Warning Center has been literally every single forecast they've been calling for intensification more than what it actually has been. So, I mean, it's a bit skeptical of me seeing this intensify a little bit more, but it is possible. I'm not ruling that out completely. But it's going to be interesting to see if this helps in that wind speed ticking up a little bit. Though, with that being said, it does appear that this large convective burst that has really had its entire life on the
Yeah.
southern side of the circulation is appearing to cover the circulation again. I can go to the visible imagery here. We can have
Yes, please.
a better look at this and see if that center has actually been covered. It'll just take a minute to load, and here it is now.
No, the circulation's
yeah.
running away a bit.
Yes, yeah, still running away a little bit, but certainly interesting to see what's happening. And that thunderstorm complex to the north isn't as high as it would be to wrap around the center, so that's certainly pretty notable.
So this tropical weather bulletin is mostly covering what's going on in Japan with Tropical Storm Meari, but we are also covering all the other systems that are currently active around the world tonight. You can send in your questions at our chat feature on the YouTube channel page. I sound really old now, don't I? You can start your message with Force 13 all in text and it will light up for us very nicely indeed. As some people have already done, and Adafira is now here with us as well.
Hello.
And we'll ask for your input for whatever you want to talk about in just a moment. But first, some questions. How is the other invest in the Atlantic that has a 30% chance? Will that become a hurricane? Well, no, it's gone.
Pretty.
They're talking about the one that was in the MDR a few days ago.
No, that's gone.
That is
That
gone.
one's gone.
I never went above 30% for that, and the NHC went up to 40. I don't know why they did that.
And we've also got a few more. Why hasn't the Atlantic Basin been as active as it was forecasted to be? A hot question right now. What is
Because it needs to
keeping it
be
from
better.
being active? When will it wake up? It had better be a conveyor belt for above average. I got what you're saying. Yes.
Because the East Pacific is better.
Well, but the Atlantic is slightly underperforming. In terms of named storm numbers, not really, but we are quite a bit below ACE, about 25% of what it should be. So we are below average in the Atlantic so far when you look at energy. But let's not forget that in 2019, D-Storm, we all remember that one, that was Dorian. That didn't form until just over a week from now, it would have been.
Chantal didn't form until
24th.
about now.
Quite something for the on this day.
Yeah, and then 2019 got to, was it M?
No, it went beyond that. It got to the S name,
No, we got
Sebastian.
Sebastian.
Yes, Sebastian.
Which year got to M now, recently?
Which one was that?
Must have been 20... No, it wasn't 2018, was it? Was it?
15 or
2018 had
2015.
Michael.
Yeah, was that the
15 or
last
14,
storm?
I think. No, Oscar was the last storm of 18.
That's right, yeah. Well, I don't know where I've come up with all that then. But yeah, of course, 2019 got quite far. As I was
It
saying.
just shows that you don't really need an active July and an active August to still have a crazy active season.
Yeah.
And you have
Absolutely.
September and October.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the fall months of 2019 were really crazy around the whole world. So, conclusions are that don't make any assumptions yet. There is still a long way to go. I would be prepared to say, and I'll go on record for saying this, September 3rd, if we don't get D-Storm by then, season's a bust.
That's the day before my birthday.
That's what I'm saying.
I can count that.
I'm just now getting imagery up on my screen, Nathan, of... Oh, I forget this invest number now.
90
98.
L.
Oh, Western Pacific,
is-
new 191W, is it?
Yeah, this
Yes.
is 91W. GFS has, a few days ago, was bent on this becoming a pretty major typhoon for the Philippines. Not going to happen.
Looks
But this
like that.
some energy could contribute to something maybe later down the line. GFS eventually takes us off towards the Hong Kong region in about 7 days from now. So this can pretty much do what 8W did pretty much. Try to form somewhere in this monsoonal mess.
And it
I mean,
is.
I thought this was
you can just
right
zoom
about
out and you can really just see just how much of a mess the Philippine Sea is right now. I mean, look at
Oh,
it.
I've seen worse. I've seen much worse.
Yep,
out there,
I've seen much
but
worse.
So currently for 91W, it's about 7.5 degree or 7.5 degrees north, 137 degrees east. And it seems to have relatively weak winds, only around 15 miles per hour as of now. However, that might increase.
You can never really count these systems out that are down there, but usually at this time of year, it's that they're pretty subdued. Here's another wide shot on the geocolor of how the Western Pacific is looking. Actually looks cloudier on this imagery, to be honest. Philippine Sea, yeah, it is a bit messy.
Question for you, Nathan.
Untrained eye might not even be able to make out that invest, but you can see it there towards the bottom. Go ahead.
When are we expecting Miri's landfall time to be? Looks like that based off of this visible imagery, it could be in a few hours, if not sooner.
Oh, it's going to be pretty soon. I mean, daybreak was
Likely.
maybe 2 hours ago now, or one even. Trying to figure out the image. Oh no, it was quite a while ago on that imagery. They have early sunrises there then.
The sun's been up for about 3 to 4 hours.
Isn't it only like 7:30 in the morning there?
I think it is.
That doesn't make sense then.
I thought it'd be like 8:30 or something. Hang on, let me find out.
Oh, is it?
No, it's 9:30.
Oh
It's
god.
9:30.
Have we
It's
just
9:30 a.m.
got everything wrong today?
Yeah, no, 9:30, absolutely.
So,
Right, let's start that again. So it's been the sun's been up for about 3 hours. It's moved that distance. So at that rate, I'd say just eyeballing it, maybe another 3 hours then. Although there was the GFS earlier that suggested that it might just do a little stall before moving inland.
I'd probably stay around 2 hours from now for landfall, personally.
We have a question. We have two questions. One from Sergio Cruz Cardenas saying, 413 is 98L going to be just like Holland?
Oh.
No.
Now,
Oh,
it
dear.
says 2 L's. So
Well-
however, I
Oh,
do
no,
assume
let's
that
not.
is.
We'll come back to 98L in a little bit. Just want to take some more questions though. Do you think Invest 90C will become Hone? And if not, do you think it will peak
No.
as a TD?
Not even an invest.
No.
Oh, I'm afraid not. It's gone off of. It's no longer an invest. It's been killed.
Take
basically.
90C here.
Oh, there it
Take
is.
90C here.
I'm back.
Move this whole system east of Hawaii, right here, where this other circle is. if it was right here, right now, then I would say that it actually has a decent chance. But if since it's right here, and right in its way, right over here, is a lot of wind shear. No chance of this thing forming at all.
Yeah.
This thing maybe has 24 hours at most. I mean, you can already tell in the visible imagery that shear's already getting to it, and that's just right now. Which I'm just on my other screen here, pulling up wind shear right now for this system, and it's got wind shear of 30 knots over it right now,
It's a fair bit.
and it does not go up or down over the next few days.
Odds are
shear
against it then.
Yep. Shear is actually remaining pretty stable in front of the system, and it's got 30 knots of wind shear in front of it as well. So, not a chance of this thing forming at all.
More questions to catch up with. Would Tropical Storm Meari become a typhoon? That's pretty... I mean, that's not likely
No.
at all.
No, not
No.
likely. It's too soon to landfall.
There were suggestions from the GFS in earlier runs that it would make a run for typhoon status after passing Japan, but that was before it suggested it would make landfall, and here we are, it is going to make landfall, so it will not have strength to muster on the other side. It will strengthen again, but certainly not typhoon strength.
I believe.
JCWC's initial cone, like their very first forecast, called for a 70-mile-per-hour peak from this. So
Impressive.
Is this the first landfall on the main Japanese island since Chanthu?
Since on the main, sorry, say.
Is
Since
this the first
Chanthu.
landfall on to hit the main
On
Japanese
Honshu, yeah.
islands?
On Honshu.
let me just double check for you real quick here. Are you referring to like the big Japanese islands as a whole, or just
The main
one?
seven, the main
Okay.
or morely Honshu.
Okay, just give me 1 minute here, and I will check here. I'm pretty sure it actually is. Chanthu was the last one last year. I don't think that we've had one this year. No, we actually have. We've had Air. So Air was the latest one.
Where did that hit?
That was a storm that passed near Okinawa, moved slowly northwest, and then made a gradual turn off towards the east, and hit over here somewhere, where it says color scheme
That's
measure.
not Honshu though. It didn't make landfall in
Are you-
Honshu.
Are you sure?
It hit
Are you sure that
Kyushu
was
and
Honshu?
Shikoku, and that's it.
Well, I'm not really familiar with my Japanese island names, so
The main one is
Hold
Honshu.
on.
one.
You've got Shikoku to the south,
Let me
Kyushu
find
to
out
the
here.
west, Hokkaido to the north.
It did make landfall on Honshu, just about, but it was a TD throughout the whole of those landfalls. So
Yeah.
that
This
to
would
me
probably
that
be the
doesn't
first
really
tropical
count.
storm.
All right, we'll be doing models in about 10 minutes. We'll be taking a look at the latest model runs, what the GFS
I
has
have
in
models.
store in the short, medium, and silly range. Let's take a look at some more questions, though. What will the peak of the East Pacific Invest be? So I assume it's the one that's further east, and it's
90.
all bets
90.
are off on that one at this point, Ethan.
I'd say at this point, if I were to make a forecast cone on it, I'd probably call for a 35-mile-per-hour tropical depression. But I wouldn't go higher than that as far as peak goes. The only model right now to really bring this above tropical depression intensity is, as usual, the HWRF.
Uh-huh.
But even that's going only with 40 miles per hour. So
Wow.
just shows you how much luck is how much the models are not into the system now.
Which Atlantic hurricane name do you think will become the monster it's Hermine for me? Oh dear. Let's not speculate on that on the Tropical
please
Weather
don't.
Bulletin.
No.
Is the lack of activity in the Atlantic a sign that an El Nino is beginning to take shape? No, it is not.
No, it's not.
No.
We're still very much in a La Nina. Just ignore the amount of activity the East Pacific's been churning out recently, but we are still in a La Nina.
Although
Most
I have been
climatological
hearing
models.
rumors that next year could be a El Nino year. I've heard rumors about that.
Well,
so.
it would be about
Yes.
time.
Yeah, many
And it would
all
be
climatologists
great, if you
are
ask me.
agreeing on a El Nino.
Here's current sea surface temperatures. In fact, we want to look at the anomalies. Here's the latest anomalies, and you'll see quite clearly two things actually to note. The La Nina is still extremely pronounced in the central Pacific, at which point you could call it a Modoki La Nina. And then on the eastern side, you do have, through the Galapagos Islands and those Nino areas that people look at very closely, quite above average, Ethan, pushing 3 degrees above average near the Galapagos Islands.
That's interesting. So I wonder if that's a sign for things to
Well,
come.
maybe it is a sign.
Yeah, but look at the Atlantic though, the Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean Sea, main development region. Look at that.
Yeah.
Well, it is around average. It's a little bit above average there. It's
I
not.
mean,
It's not
what's
as above average
even-
as it used to be in the
Yeah.
deep tropics, but further in the subtropics and the extratropical zones, very much above average.
I mean, I just want to
Yeah,
point
it
out,
looks
like,
like
what's
Bulletin
the
C too.
what's the period of below average, just off the coast of, I want to say, Spain and Portugal? Just like that. Where does that goes down to at least, or
Northwest.
pretty hard to say where it ends, but like almost halfway
Yeah, we
to
see
the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Like
The
that, to
Mediterranean
my
and
eye,
the extratropicals are very above average, especially in the North Pacific.
But Christian, you're pointing to the only part of the Atlantic that's got below average temperatures, and
yes, I am. I
also
was gonna say, like,
which
I think
correlates
that
to the only
period
part of the
of
Atlantic where nothing happens there either. Really.
I know, but I'm
That
not
is
done
true.
speaking yet. I'm
Mhm.
not done speaking. Basically, to my eye, I think that period of below average is actually getting smaller. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
It has
okay.
been.
And then I also just want to bring out, like, how many degrees above average is the Mediterranean?
Quite a
Ooh, yeah.
bit, 3 to 4.
Hold
Yeah.
on,
And then
Christian, because I can
Mediterranean.
actually somewhere on my PC I have my TWB template that I made that I used a while back, and that has the sea surface temperatures anomalies that I had. I don't know where it is, but let me just find it here for you, and I'll come back to you.
Well, this image has clearly failed to load. Oh dear.
oh
There
no,
it is.
God.
Here's a look at the Atlantic. It's not the one I was expecting, but if you're interested in this area, you can see that it's fairly quiet in the Caribbean. Alright, let's see what we've got here in this mixed bag of... Okay, so here's the Eastern Pacific look at what's going on, and you can just about make out the Gulf of Mexico system there as well, acquiring a little bit of rotation, but in general, it's not up to that much at the moment. The radar that Ethan was showing was on board with that kind of thing as well, but there was very little precipitation being produced. And then you can see the Eastern Pacific there with that area of interest, which I can see when you think about it. It was around this point in Howard's track that it strengthened rather surprisingly into a hurricane at that point. So I can sympathise with your point of view there, that it could spring a surprise just as it passes those islands, Socorro Island.
It could, but I wouldn't personally place my money on anything just yet.
Shall I do sea surface?
Right, Christian, I've got
You found
the...
it.
Yep, I've got it up on my screen now. This is for June 22nd. So this is
Right, okay, this year.
just under 2 months old.
Wow.
But I have
Yeah,
it up on my
wow,
screen.
that is
and you
quite a
can-
difference.
And yeah, you were alluding to those well above average in the equatorial regions of the Eastern Pacific, Nathan. Those weren't there at all 2 months ago.
Neither was the real waves of low anomalies in the Central Pacific there. It was much more sort of calm. Massive changes there in 2 months, and you notice, like I said, the Gulf of Mexico was quite a bit above average back then. It's equaled out a little bit now.
But the one very notable thing that I noticed from this image to what it is actually now, the subtropics of the Atlantic have warmed up considerably.
Oh yes.
And
Oh yeah.
and that's quite a significant change. But I wasn't looking at the South China Sea, but the South China Sea, I believe, has actually cooled a little bit, but the Philippine Sea has actually warmed a little bit more, actually.
Ah.
And again, like the subtropics in the eastern central Pacific, they've gone massively warm. That makes any sense at all.
The Central Pacific, basically.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get some things up and running here that we can look at
I
together.
do have
But
sea surface temperatures up.
we did look at that not long ago, though. And we are still looking at those anomalies on the screen.
Anomalies, but not regular sea surface temperatures.
Yeah, I just want to point out, like, the Mediterranean as well, 2 months ago was also quite a bit above average as well. Like, quite a significant margin. So things on that front haven't really changed a whole lot.
Once again, we look at the zoomed out version of the Western Pacific with Miri right at the top there, fronting all of that activity of, well, messy stuff in the Philippine Sea. Miri blowing up some decent amounts of convection, and that would be the top story at this hour as it approaches land. You can see going by the bottom of the screen there all of the chances of gales and the rain forecast for the various locations there. Some areas could get in excess of 150 millimeters, which is a bit of a downward revision compared to, say, yesterday and the previous day, when at times we were looking at possibly 250 millimeters. But sometimes when it comes to flash flooding and landslides, it can be the rate of rainfall rather than the amount. And we saw not long ago on the radar imagery that I think Ethan showed us earlier, or David, that the thunderstorms ahead of the storm center were producing some high amounts of rain rates. And I see that Ethan's showing the radar again. And you can see, let's get some latest, where's the latest frame, Ethan?
I can pause it here. I'm not sure how to exactly use this website.
That's what website you were using.
I think that's the latest frame, I think. Yeah. Yeah, this is the absolute latest frame, which is at it says 10:10 Japan Standard Time, apparently.
So we've got some rainfall in, I think that would be northern Shizuoka, and then yes.
Sorry, you said 10:10 Japan Standard Time. Let me just take a look at the current time in Tokyo. Okay, 9:41. Why wasn't 10:10 then? What? Okay, that's puzzling. Maybe I don't know.
If anyone's in Japan right now, please tell us what time it is.
As I watched the
That's
one
not
thing
our
that
gaff that time. If you're getting two different sources right now, that's just insane. Go ahead, Ethan.
One thing that I noticed is, look how close this is getting now to Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
So rainfall inbound for Tokyo, and this is a pretty heavily populated area, so that's going to lead to a lot of urbanized flooding problems as
It's
well.
literally right off of Tokyo Bay right now.
All right, Ethan, I think I know what it is because I'm familiar with JMA products. You're probably looking at a future cast there.
Oh.
It's only half an hour in the future.
Yeah, they have done that for quite a while. Yeah, that'll be a future cast then.
Okay, so I'm assuming that whenever this thing turns green, that's the future cast. So this is 9:15.
Yeah, some significant thunderstorms blowing in there, and that was ahead of the main bulk of the storm, the center region. All right, let's have a few more questions here. I'm not sure if there's many that are of much depth, if I could say that. For instance, a comment there, how would the team feel if no Category 5 forms this year in any basin? We would be so happy.
We'll be
That'd the
happy.
First time in...
Yes.
First time in
A long time, let's just say.
48 years.
When was the last time this happened?
1974. And the West Pacific came pretty close with a Typhoon Gloria that year. A strong Category 4, but it didn't manage it. So it would be quite fascinating if that did happen again. It's never happened since, and it never happened for many seasons before that either. And a question on what is the storm that looked the worst in your opinion? I don't even get me started. One of these recent West Pacific ones, I suppose.
Yeah, trust.
2019.
Well, I wasn't really there for that. I hear that it was a very poor storm.
Well, I don't know. Like, I don't even think
it
it
was
was
incredibly
depression
poor.
status, if you ask me. But like, I don't even know why they named it.
All right, well, now it's the moment everyone's been waiting for. It's models time. Let's go over to my model
Huzzah.
chart here and show you everything that's expected from the GFS model. This is just one model. There are many other different models out there. I don't particularly prefer the GFS. People might think that about me, just because I use all of the graphics for the GFS. The truth of the matter is that this software does not display any other global models. So that's pretty sad. I wish it would. It would be great if it did. I'd be really happy, but that's the fact. It does not. I'm sure some of the members here could tell us about what other models are showing, but let's have a look at what the GFS has for the Atlantic then. First of all, let's check this Gulf system that we're looking at here.
What the heck?
First of all,
What the-
you can just about make out the very wide, broad potential circulation there for this system, and eventually let's see if it consolidates that. Only a little bit. You can again see that center of circulation, not a center, but potential trying to become a center. And then, actually no, look at this. This is 18Z. It does have a future for it. That is a center there, and possibly Cyclone Genesis right off the coast, just south of Corpus Christi, and could become a tropical storm. Ooh, that's a close one. Wind speed's getting close to tropical storm strength here, and then moving inland. That could be a tropical depression there, moving inland over Texas. That's actually very interesting. I wasn't expecting to see that. Let's take a look at elsewhere in the Atlantic during the whole period that we're looking at, and it's only very late in the model run that you see some little thing forming here near Honduras and Nicaragua. That is super long range, silly range, and actually look something else here. Cape Verde system in the ultra long range. Alright, that's way far out though. In the meantime, Eastern Pacific then, let's have a look here. The first system, obviously, the current invest, really doesn't do very much. Traceable for a little while and then it's gone. And then in the very late run here, a new hurricane forms that only starts to develop on August the 24th. So that's 11 days out, which is a long, long way. You know,
I'll be on holiday by then.
there's nothing you can really say about that forming. Howard's remnants still be traceable for a few days. And Central Pacific, looking at that, there it goes, blows off a little bit in the Western Pacific. You'll be able to trace it for a long time, but it won't form. And nothing else over there in the Central Pac. All right.
Brace for impact.
Western
Brace
Pacific
for
then.
impact.
Let's take a look first at Miri, and you can see it moving inland very quickly. Landfall time on this model run, which is obviously a little bit out of date now, but let's just see if we can pinpoint a time. Looks like it would be about 3 or 4 hours from now if the GFS was to be correct. sweeps off northeastward, moving through the Kuril Islands and actually hitting the Kamchatka Peninsula on the nose there as an extratropical cyclone. Tropical storm force winds last for a while there. Let's look further south. So you've got first that Invest, which was newly designated. Nothing comes of that. So let's see what happens
Something
now.
actually does, Nathan, at day 6 and day 7, very close to Hong Kong.
I must have missed that.
Yep, I see it.
For it, well, it is that. Is it? Are we talking? We're talking about the same thing here. Yeah, this thing heading in towards southern China, that comes directly from the Invest, does it?
Its energy does.
No, I'm not sure it does. Oh well, that's hard to tell.
And a big storm in the long range.
Nonetheless, yeah, similar to Mulan in a way, in how broad it would be.
And then also at day 5, I also do note that something tries to develop west of Guam.
Yep, there it goes. Moves off northwards. Might even try to become a tropical cyclone there on the front. And then after that, in the longer range, we get a tropical cyclone moving through the Marianas. And then, oh dear, we get
Oh no!
a cyclone there
Very
being
powerful one.
spat out. And then,
Wow!
oh Jesus, what is that?
Don't
I
know
can
what it
tell you
is.
guys that is not going to happen there. That
then,
is
yeah.
a
113 miles per hour on my end, Nathan.
someone's going to end up screenshotting this and saying, "Hey, look, it's a
115.
binary storm with 2 eyes." And then no, that's not going to happen. The one strong storm
might
could
have been
form
now.
though this time of year. I mean, let's face it, August 31st is the peak of Pacific typhoon season by the numbers. So we're getting awfully close to that. A storm like that could happen. The stronger one I'm talking about.
But will it? Who knows?
Indian Ocean, you can see traces of that storm right now, 3A, quite easy to spot. What happens to it? It survives a little longer, couple of days, starts to weaken and then dies, and it doesn't impact any land areas directly. Stays
In
well
the
off.
long range, for a while in the long range, in the Australian region, another 01S tries to
Oh,
get
there it
itself
is.
together.
There's something, a little thing trying to form there. But GFS throws up those false alarms all the time. We're surprised that 1S happened. Nothing in the South Pacific. Alright, so that's the interesting part done with all those models. In
this
general, a fairly quiet period. We hope. Is it?
How we do
Let's
the
hope
on
it
this
stays
day?
that way.
But the big takeaways from that model run is that GFS now thinks that maybe a TD will come from the Gulf system as it strikes Texas just south of Corpus Christi, and a possible system in the Western Pacific, South China Sea next week. Back to Ethan's screen and another update on the latest on Tropical Storm Meari. There it is, still partially exposed, convection blowing up pretty nicely. Any inkling that this storm might have gotten a little bit stronger, maybe?
I'm just refreshing you at the latest imagery. Because we've got 2 new frames here in this loop. And still no signs, if you ask me. Not really much change in 20 minutes either way.
Just going to look for, see if there's any new satellite estimates that have come
About
in.
to look at.
Sorry?
That's what I was about to look at. We've still got SATCON and AMSU at 42 knots. ADT still at low and tropical storm. So chances are this still is probably sitting around 45 miles per hour. Let me just go off and check.
Oh, I don't know. I think it might have
Navy's
weakened a bit.
website. Let's have a look at ASCAT. I don't think that we'll have a nice ASCAT pass. No. We haven't had one since 12Z, unfortunately.
Ah.
That was our last pass that we had, and that only got 35 knot winds, which would account for some underestimating. You would get 40 knots from that ASCAT pass. But the satellite presentation was a lot worse at 12Z.
Yeah, it's a
and
conundrum.
The center was completely exposed, and looking at it now, the only center really is, I don't know, a halfway to a quarter of the way under convection now. And compared to at 12Z when it was completely exposed, maybe some grounds for some slight intensification, but personally I would probably remain at 45 miles per hour for this right now.
I don't know. Probably. If in doubt, you stick with what it was. So, yeah, I guess that's fair. 45 miles per hour. Just the satellite estimates have just slipped slightly to more support 40 miles per hour, but then you consider its movement, and I suppose you factor in its forward motion. It's probably moving fairly quickly. You might add a 5 onto that, and just its satellite appearance just looks too good to be just 40 miles per hour to me. So there it is. Let's just actually, something I forgot to do is to go and take a look at the precipitation chart for Japan on the GFS model and show you what we expect in the next 7 days for the region. Here it comes. You'll just about make out the Japanese islands underneath all of that. I'll make it clearer.
Before you get on to that, Nathan, ATCF has ran with 40 miles per hour, 998 millibars. That will be what the JTWC will run with at their next warning, which will be in 3 hours from now. No, 2 hours. That's not that's the JTWC, not the JMA.
All right, there we go. So some of these locations in Japan look around 5 inches, maybe pushing a little bit more there. Expected over land areas. Gotta try and take this off again. So there we are, just to show you representation of the land. So 5 inches we're expecting now maximums, and that's around Shikoku, not Shikoku, Shizuoka, similar names. And Hamamatsu looks like 5 inches will be on order, so that's over 100 millimeters. Same too for the Tokyo metro area, probably around 100 millimeters of rain expected. But once again, it's not the total amount necessarily, but it is going to be the rain rate that could cause some quick flooding issues that could, spiral out of control very quickly when we talk about landslides and flash flooding. Alright, I think that is everything, and now we'll be progressing to the On This Day section and our outro. So before we go there, any final comments that our team would like to tell us, anything?
Well, I have the On This Day up. And on this day in 1999, August 12th, 1999, Hurricane Dora was an impressive-looking Category 4 Pacific hurricane, reaching an unofficial peak of 145 miles per hour and a pressure of 935 millibars. Dora was one of only a handful of storms to exist in the East Pacific, Central Pacific, and West Pacific basins. Thankfully, no areas were affected.
Indeed it was. That was on this day for August the 12th, which we usually would have done at the start of yesterday's Tropical Weather Bulletin, but we weren't here. But for the 13th, we have this. Oh, there it is. August the 13th, 1899. Good Lord.
Oh, wow.
The San Kiriako Hurricane 3L was moving through the Bahamas as a Category 3. We also had a Typhoon 8W, which was just about to move through Okinawa. But we don't know much about that because it was such a long time ago. San Kiriako Hurricane lasted from, I think it was the 3rd of August to the 4th of September. Incredible. Longest lived Atlantic storm, if you count the time in between where it was dead and regenerated. Meanwhile, today we've got Danielle next up on the Atlantic naming list. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Yvette, and in the Central Pacific, guys,
I'm not even gonna say
Iona
it.
is next.
In the Western Pacific, next up is Maon, and in the North Indian Ocean, it will be Sitrang. Yeah. I just thought I'd insert a moment there for the team to comment, but they didn't. In the Australian region, next name is Darian, the Southwest Indian Ocean is Ashley, and the South Pacific is Harley. Goodbye for now, we'll be back again with another tropical weather bulletin tomorrow night.
Goodbye.